So a very basic concept that we're going to speak today about is in-group and out-group, and I'm going to keep it really simple. In-group is predominantly globally white males, and whenever we look towards that, we position different people's levels of privilege and accessibility. So the further you are from that, the further your accessibility is. And there's lots of different pieces of research around that. But when we talk about in-groups, we're often talking about that piece. So the other thing that we need to think about of in-groups and out-groups is that in any setting there can be an in-group as well. So there's a global in-group, which I've just described, but also in any setting there can be an in-group. So in certain communities like LGBT community, for example, the in-group is based on the values and what is considered LGBT enough. And in that in-group, and I'm just using that as an example, in that in-group, anything that is less that becomes part of the out-group or moves further and further out from the centre of the circle. And so in every setting, we have in-groups and out-groups where there's a group of people. And this is where sometimes people talk about cliques, and that is kind of a felt experience of an in-group and being on the out-group. Usually cliques don't necessarily feel that they're the in-group, but the out-group, the people outside the clique, are very aware that they're the out-group. And they're aware of what that feels like. So one thing to think about when we're thinking about inclusion in terms of groups is thinking about where we are in terms of that centre of that in-group. Are we near the centre? Are we in the circle? Or are we completely outside the circle in the out-group? So the more towards the centre of the circle of the in-group that we are, the less we're aware of it. As we move out to the outskirts, the more aware we are that certain things are awarded or valued and other things are not valued within that circle. But we still fit within the circle for whatever reasons. And then the out-group is actually we don't fit within the circle. There's evident difference and that difference isn't valued. So we aren't in out-groups because of difference necessarily. We're in out-groups because our difference isn't valued. And that's where inclusion work is really central, is actually if we were active in inclusion work, then difference could be valued and therefore the experience of being in the out-group would be a lot less. So it's something to think about. It's part of a survival mechanism. We do it naturally. And so in-groups and out-groups are just part of how we manage. However, there is a practice in being inclusive. And there is not one of us who doesn't need to think about our inclusion, regardless of how diverse we are and how different we are, or how often we feel outside the in-group. We all have a role in inclusion because at times we are nearer the centre of the circle than others. And it's at those times we can use that privilege or that accessibility to create inclusion or exclusion. And that's just something to think about. If you have any questions about in-group or out-group, or you'd like to discuss something within your organisation or your own work with me, pop me an email to info@sheilawalsh.com and we can set up a consultation. It was lovely speaking about this today. It's just a quick snapshot, but the idea is to get you thinking about it. Thank you.